How's it going, Kiran?
Great, great, great. Right now, great.
Ah, shit.
I had a nice vacation. So,
Nice. Where did you go?
Udaipur, Udaipur.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Udaipur has those. I've been meaning to go to Udaipur because I think they have a lot of those. They have these island forts and things like that, which are pretty cool, right?
Not island, but lake,
L-
city of lakes.
like city of lakes, and then in the middle of the
Lake,
lake, they have these.
lake, yeah, yeah, right. They have these hotels and palaces.
That's crazy. Did
Yeah.
you go with your students or did you go like with someone else?
Friends this time, surprisingly friends. After like 4 long years, friends.
That's crazy. That's mad. But you
That's,
do a lot of trips with the students and everything as well, right?
yes, yes, a lot. In fact, I have a channel, Indian Musafirs. Like we travel and we capture wherever we travel. We try to tell them how to go about it.
Oh, that's crazy. So, like, these are just like regular school trips. What are they?
Not school trips exactly. It is like treks and stuff, but not a school way of going. It is enjoying. It is going with your friends. It's not some disciplined trip. It is you can be whatever you want to, wherever you want to go, uh, and maybe like introducing them to this side of you know enjoyment, or they don't know these perks of life.
Yeah,
So my students especially, they have only seen the side where they have to grow up and work,
yeah,
and the trips or like small breaks or weekends, these things they have no idea about.
yeah. No, I think that's also what's insane is one is this. Why do first let's address that question because you just mentioned that they have to grow up and like work. So
Right.
why?
Because from the very beginning, there is a task of get doing something to get something.
Yeah.
They're not, as we say, underprivileged, or as we say. So for me, the definition of being privileged is having something without doing any work.
Mhm.
And for them, it is always they have to struggle to get a thing, or they have seen their parents struggling. They have seen everyone in the family struggling to make sometimes ends meet, or even if not that, then the goals are simple. The goals is having a car, having a house, not traveling, not finding themselves, not creating something. No.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, what's also insane is that most of these kids plan these trips themselves, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a pretty educational process. Like if you're, I never planned a trip when I was 14 or 15 years old, let alone like a school trip where I'm going to be recording stuff and going to be putting that stuff up on various kinds of channels. So I definitely think that that's pretty cool as well.
Yeah, and also I think it came from my personal learning also, like me and my friends, when I look at our lives, when we meet each other and we discuss, we always feel like I wish we knew we could do this.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we knew this could happen. And later we have found out that these are the basic, and till the time we found out, now there is duties, there are jobs, there is we are not together anymore. Like when you're in school or when you're in college, the group is together.
Yeah.
You have your weekends free. There's no pressure, or there's no like you cannot take a holiday off. You don't need to have a timetable.
Right.
Now these guys are no timetable, so they can actually explore what they like. And when you travel, you meet new people, new career. You get introduced to new business. You get introduced to various kind of people doing very different jobs. Sometimes even I don't know. Like there are people doing what not.
Like,
So it's
do you
crazy.
have like a example or a story of how your students found some different profession or an example of something that they experienced or discovered during their travels?
Yeah. So we met a guy when we were trekking to Kalsubai.
Yeah.
There was one traveler trekking with his bag all
Right.
alone, and he was just walking, towards the mountain
Mm.
and all alone, which is. Which was like, oh my god, he's alone and he's walking. What is he exactly trying to
Yeah.
do? and we started chatting with him. He happened to be a lawyer. His name is Abhishek Tripathi. He's a lawyer, criminal lawyer in Mumbai,
Nice.
and he told us that uh, you know it's important to be alone, and it's also important to enjoy your company. And so we were like, how do you manage to you know take care of the firm, whatever you run, lawyer, and still come out and travel?
Right.
Because everyone has responsibilities, work. Then he told us that what he does is he never pays for any trips. Never.
Oh.
What he does is he does little work on the go.
Oh.
So if he comes to your house, he will be like, can I paint your wall? Or maybe can I clean this? Will you give me
Got
food?
it.
So basically like a barter system.
As he's traveling.
And he's been doing it. Yes, and he's gone all over the world. It's not just like in India it works for him. He goes, and then I started researching like, are there people like that? And there was one guy, I don't remember his name, but if you go on Google, you'll definitely find that person. He has traveled the world without paying a penny.
Yeah.
Like he's just kept on doing artist work for it to be like, I'll create this wall, I'll make this wall a nice thing. He's a painter. Yeah. And he does that and he's traveling the world.
Yeah, I think that's wild. I think what's crazy about that is the fact that, you're walking around, you could tell a student as much as you want, hey, you should be okay with your company, you should be okay with doing things on your own, take a few risks, things like that. But when you actually see someone do that, when you see someone living that life for themselves, and then you get to ask them questions and you get to see them be themselves, I think that's a different kind of learning altogether. It's like, then it's not no longer information that I'm giving someone, but I'm providing them examples and role models, in a very different sense of the way.
They have learned a lot by traveling. I think even responsibility wise, they sort of understood that it's their life too.
Yeah.
Like what change I noticed was that before this, most of my students were very concerned about the family responsibilities. But after traveling, they've sort of understood, yes, this is a responsibility, but apart from there is a life they also have to build for themselves. Right. They're choosing this for years.
Yeah.
And we don't think it like that. When we get a job offer at the age of 16 or 18, like, you're going to get 15,000. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
For getting 15,000 or 12,000. What we don't understand is that we're choosing to leave education or to leave our academics and select that job and continue doing it for years.
Yeah.
And later in life, we realize that, shit, I could have done something better.
Right.
Or I didn't get a chance to explore. Like, we did internships, right? Yeah. These guys don't get to do internships.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, especially because you're looking at it as an educational experience. You're not looking like, I've done school trips as well, right? Everyone's done school trips. It's not that. It's that it's a completely different experience when you're going out to a school trip and you're saying that I'm going to be planning the whole thing. You're going to be taking your own, you're going to be learning your own skill. You're going to be using a whole different skill. You're going to be making videos. You're going to be planning the itinerary. You're going to be, creating the whole, you're going to make bookings yourself, things like that. You'll have to figure out where we're going to stay. I'm just going to hang back. That whole space actually gives the student a lot of control over it. And that's completely opposite to what I did in my school time. Like when I was in school, people would be like, this is where you got to go. You're going to stay there a day. Then we're going to go here. We're going to go there. But just the whole fact that you're planning what you're going to do and things like that. I think there's a lot of transferability in terms of future skills that people can learn.
Even the budget, that's very important. Yeah. The budget is the craziest part. It's not we traveled in Goa for New Year's week in just $2,500.
How many of y'all were there?
2,000. We were 6 of us, 5 students and me. And crazy.
Including travel?
You should see the video.
Including travel?
Yes, including travel. So
how did you do that?
It was It was crazy. You have no idea. I don't want. It's kind of risky to share,
It's
but
fine,
it's
man.
it's like no.
As
I
long as
mean, I did crazy
as long
stuff
as
there.
everyone came back home safe, I think it's fine.
Yes, they did. No, my point was the reason I made them do this was simple. It's stop giving
Right.
excuses. You don't need to shop. The problem is like I need 10 grands to go to Goa, man. Why? Why do you need to stay? Like cut off the villa. Let's stay in a hostel. So we stayed in a hostel. They got introduced to the hostel.
Right.
Goa has
Yeah.
hostel. So we just paid like $250 something for the
Yeah.
hostel. And for food, we were on, omelets, eggs, and these
Yeah.
kind of things. Like not like a, and we used to get thali, like the Goa
Mm-hmm.
thali, where you get the
Got
local
it.
food, right? For
I think they
$100
call
or
it a
something like
Konkan
that.
thali or something like that.
Yeah. With the soul
Soul
curry
curry.
and stuff. So that, and then we didn't shop at all. We didn't buy anything from there. What we bought, maybe like like a magnet or a badge. That's it, like a souvenir that we went there and came back. And then on Saturday night market. So Saturday night market is something that goes up like 4 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
So we one night was planned that we are not staying anywhere. We will just hang out there. We will just chill.
Right.
So we slept till afternoon, and then we went there. We were just looking at the rock show, like musicians and
That's
done.
amazing.
So, it was not everything was not a piece of
Yeah.
cake, but it was important for them to realize that it can happen. It is not possible.
Yeah.
And they just have to adjust.
Yeah, we did this as part of my previous organization where we would do these things called padyatras, where we're basically walking. Either some people decided to walk barefoot, some people were wearing shoes. It was across Ahmedabad, and the whole idea was that we're going to be staying out in the city. We are going to not use money for one whole day. We're going to make sure that we're traveling. And when we are traveling, we're not going to be asking anybody for, we're not going to be paying for those travels. We are going to be doing that free. So either you can walk or you can stay the night, like if someone agrees to kind of give you a ride somewhere else. And what's insane was just how we realized that when you say that, hey, I'm just doing a journey for myself. I have promised not to pay anyone, but I was wondering if you can help me. I don't mind helping you back in exchange, and having that conversation. And it's crazy the number of people who were open to this. Like there were definitely people who looked at us who were like we were crazy.
Yeah.
But then there was also a group of people who would like, you would go up to a bunch of rickshaw drivers and things like that, and they would. One guy is like, "You must be out of your mind," and he drove off. But it was like we laughed it off, right? Because we wanted to get to another part of the city. So we asked for another rickshaw, and then we went, and one person was nice enough to actually take us there. And then when it came nighttime, we were hungry, so we were like, okay, now we need to. So we went to a few restaurants. We asked for, like, we said, we don't mind working in your restaurant in exchange for food if you would be nice enough to do that. And they actually did that. So through that process, we ended up sleeping the night outside. But when I got done from that day, right, when that day was behind me, like definitely it was kind of uncomfortable and awkward for me to ask for someone for help without paying them. But when I was done with that day, I realized that suddenly the world is a little bit more accessible to me now. Like I can go anywhere I want, and I don't need to have a transaction in order to offer something.
And you're not scared anymore. You're like not scared anymore. There are people out there who are, nice or like who are helpful, and not like right now. We all say like money matters and stuff, but sometimes there are places where it fades. Like you don't need that kind.
And
actually, I got inspired by, there was a show, Beg Borrow Steal, that used to come on Bindas, I guess. And I used to love that show. There was this anchor called Alia, and she used to just like producers of the show used
Yeah.
to give her tasks. Like you have to go to this place, you have to reach in so and so time.
Yeah.
We don't know how, and then she used to keep begging for lifts and all. So if you see our Goa video also, I haven't really taken the transportation of public. I have asked for lifts, so we have traveled trucks, tempos. You will
Yeah.
see those videos where we are traveling in trucks and tempos. We need not spend a lot on traveling.
That's
also.
insane. That's really wild.
So that.
What's also crazy is that a lot of these students have, and this is a guess I'm making because I've worked with some of them. A lot of these students have this mindset or belief that I don't deserve a trip to Goa, right? I don't deserve, like, because of their, of how much their parents earn, things like that. So this process, I'm sure, also breaks a lot of barriers or hurdles for them in their own mind, which is saying that a lot more is accessible to me than what used to be before the experience.
For sure. Yes, for sure. They dream better. That's what I can say. So the when I started my center, the reason I named it Dream Big was it was
Yeah.
very simple.
Yeah.
Dream big. It was
Right.
so simple because what I saw in most of my students were they were not able to even afford
Yeah.
dreams. This cannot happen, and that for me was like this needs to change. At least
Yeah.
I hope. Not hoping also, I cannot do this. This is not meant for me. This is not something I can do. Even career wise, even anything you tell them, this is not for me. You just give you this
Right.
direct. How at the age of 12, 13, 14, like the teenage age, how do you
Yeah.
believe that?
And how do you walk them out of that? Like, how do you challenge that belief?
By making them do it. Yeah, like not everything, because that's of course not in my control, but maybe little things. Let's start from very little things. You can't dress a certain way, start doing that. You can't have that haircut, start doing that. You can
Right.
do that. It's very funny. So a student of mine, Arvind, he he had a problem of a haircut in his household. Like, this is not meant for us. I was like, what do you mean that this haircut is
Right.
not meant for you? So his father has, this is bade log ka shock. That's what they say. And I'm like, a simple thing,
Yeah.
like a haircut. How does it matter? What is it? How much I pay? What is the big difference? But making your children choose something so basic
Right.
out of and making them believe that this is not
Yeah.
meant for you. It's crazy.
Yeah, because at a certain level, what you're saying is that there's a story and this is your story. Now, whether or not that story is true is not my concern, because I don't know, right? For some people it may be true, for some people it's not. At the same time, you can't really say that, what, this situation is a state of mind. It's not. It is a reality. But at the same time, when you tell any kid that, this is who we are and this is who you are, you're giving that kid a story. Whether or not that kid wants to, or whether or not that person wants to actually accept it, is secondary, because, well, my parent, who I really respect and love so much, is telling me something. So to have someone like you, who they also love and respect, to actually tell them, what, no, I don't think that this is this is what you are. Like, it might be a haircut, it could be a profession, it could be a skill, it could be
anything.
And I think examples work very strongly there, for sure.
Yeah, and minute things need to change. Like, yes, we definitely have to talk about the big stuff, but basic equality, like basic things, like a boy in the house can go to an English medium school, and I have seen this, and it's very normal. मैं तो अपने दोनों बच्चों को पढ़ा रहा हूँ, but the boy is going to an English medium school, but the daughter is going to a Hindi medium school. Why? Send them to the same school. My point is that either send them both to the Hindi medium school or both to the English medium school. Why this
Yeah,
difference?
yeah, I see that like, you know, for some people, for most people, that fact is very surprising. Like, you might think, you know, this kind of bullshit doesn't still happen in our society, but it fucking does. Like, there is examples of people who do this, where they give their kid like very blatantly more access, and it's not a wrong thing in their mind. In their mind, what they're doing is they're saying that we have fewer resources, and we want to put whatever resources that we have to use in their kid, in their male sons, uh, growth, as opposed to their female sons, because the vision that they see for the female daughter, sorry. So for their daughter, because the vision they see for their daughter is that she's going to be living at home, you know, she's going to be taking care of a household, she doesn't need that education, right? And in their mind they're correct. That's very, very flawed in terms of a way of thinking. I think we can both agree upon that. But it's
Yes,
that also I've seen that most daughters who are in this situation are actually crushed. They may have been in a great place when they were kids and when they were in school, but as time goes by, they're not going to be committed to their education, no matter how brilliant they are. In fact, one of the examples that comes to my mind, the girl was more brilliant than the boy child, at least in terms of academic achievement, right? I'm not saying their potential was different, but because of the way the parents decided to put their resources in differently, they decided to send the male child to a more expensive school, whereas the girl child was in a government school. The girl child actually, like, the access to opportunities reduced, her performance, academic performance, and her ability to achieve reduced over a period of time. So to actually empower girls to actually have this conversation is a very, very important space. Because I want to add one more thing here. I don't know if you know this, but one of the greatest indicators for future growth of a family when it comes to hygiene, happiness, future education, and also then socio-economic factors is actually how educated and knowledgeable the girl child is. People know this. So in like,
yeah,
when we're trying to do that, I think that's something that people should consciously also kind of factor in the decisions they make, but they don't.
it won't. And it comes very naturally. Like no, I won't say naturally, like because it is supposed to be like that. It is just how the system is going on for a very, very long time. It's basic. I have seen the most educated and some of, like, we say, oh my god, this lady is so educated, working so strongly, such a strong woman, and that same lady having troubles at home. So because there is a
Yeah.
system that has been long and it won't change so easily, it will take a lot
Right.
of time and a lot of effort from a
Yeah.
lot of people.
You know, which is weird, because I had a conversation with Zinat and Ibrahim from my previous 2 episodes ago, and they told me the opposite. They're saying that when kids have to pick careers, when students have to pick future careers, it seems that there's more equality than there used to be.
Definitely, yes, there is more equality, but only in, uh, let's say, urban areas. When we are talking about a country like India, where there is, and when I say urban, I just don't mean people
Yeah.
living in Mumbai. I have come across families that neutral, like the, just the neutral family
Yeah.
staying here, but like the whole nuclear
Mm-hmm.
family staying here, but the whole other, like the chacha, chachi, and all that staying in
Yeah.
villages, and they kind of have the power to control of what is happening
Yeah.
here. We know a lot of students that stay just with their fathers here, and their sisters are
Yes.
in village.
Yes.
So the mindset is still of that background.
Right.
Like, this is not allowed there. You can't do this here because this will reach
Got
the
it.
village. This will reach the custom,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there are parents, I have come across parents कि मुझे करियर से कुछ लेना देना ही नहीं है, आप मेरे बच्चे को 12वीं पास करा दो, उसको मैं गांव में ये करवा दूंगा. And I'm like, why did you take the effort of coming to Mumbai? Do there only the
Right.
degree.
Right.
When we say that they are coming forward, and they are definitely, yeah, but the reasons are not good
Yeah.
enough. There has to be a good enough reason for them to, get
Right.
educated. First of all, they need to understand the meaning of education also.
Yeah, that's
It's just a
yeah, that's a
certificate
tough
for
one,
them.
man, because it's very hard. Like I found like it, even for me, it was very hard for me to connect the shit that I learned in high school and school with any kind of profession in the future. Like the connection is just so far wide, and the more static our system is, and the more like things change around, the more weird people will be like, I don't get the connection. And this is for somebody who has previous generations of people in the system, like in education. But if
Right.
these groups of students don't have anyone who's been in education, then they'll be like, what the fuck am I just do something else.
Yeah, and the problem is I want to get educated because I want to
Yeah.
find a job. What job? What education? I don't know. I just need a job that pays me so and so money. Now that amount can vary, but they have this paisa chahiye. They don't know what they
Right.
want to do. Most of them. You ask them what do you want to
Yeah.
become. I don't know. Blank.
And so
And
about dream big then. So how does dream big come into all this? Like what motivated you to start dream big?
It started with a very small reason of giving them support in academics only. When it started off, it was just okay, they need someone to guide them outside the system. There was one more reason that after school, because they live in a nuclear family and both parents are working, so these kids used to end up in various places where they shouldn't be, or where they come across teenagers or adults who are engaged in not so sane activities. Maybe they're smoking or maybe they're drinking, but at the age of 12 or 13 you're getting introduced to tobacco or like something like that. So the idea was to create a place that is so comfortable that these guys choose to come here, sit, hang out, play carom, relax, just be there. And they have someone adult who can guide them on what to do, or who can watch them, or just who can, like take care of them, protect them that way. So that started like this, but then I got emotionally involved with a lot of kids. We found out stories, and somehow the connection built so strong. And I was, it was very selfish of me that I didn't want my hard work to go to waste. You work 2 years for them to clear 10th, and then it's like, what? Now you're not going to a college, or you're not choosing this subject. Then you kind of, it becomes personal. It became personal. I know it shouldn't have been that way. I didn't take it so professionally, but I think that helped. That helped to be so passionate about
Yeah,
this.
definitely. And I can, when I walk into that space, I do see that it doesn't feel like it's an educational space. Although students are learning, and like there's also like like when I walked into Dream Big and when I saw that space, I could see like a lot of these students, they were dressed professionally, they were talking to me, they were they were being free. In fact, there were other students who were teaching other students, right? So there was this whole ecosystem that was created, and I was like, wow, that's insane. And I believe that a lot of it just stems from the fact that you understand these students because you have come from the same space that the students have, but you've also crushed it. Like you've followed your interests, you've done a whole lot of stuff. You're a great person to talk to, you're empathetic, and at the same time you have a deep rooted knowledge of what are some of the dynamics that these students are experiencing on a daily basis.
Yeah, First of all, let me address the part of educational, because like the educational space that needs to be defined first. Like when I see Dream Big, I feel if I was a student
Yeah.
in Dream Big, I would have done wonders. I would have been at a better place because there was someone to guide. What I missed in my life was there was nobody to guide. I explored, I found out, and luckily I came across people who were, you know, I chose the right people to
Right.
guide me, say by luck or say. Uh, at the same time, when we say educational space, what is education first? Because then we think
Yeah.
only about academics. Sometimes we are sitting with a bunch of friends and we
Right.
get educated, and we don't
Yeah.
even realize that about a lot of things during just chit chat.
Yeah.
Like if you come to Dream Big and sit with the students and just chat
Hmm.
about your life, they still get educated. One of the fellows from the previous institute, he is right now in Tibet, Amit, and then he came back and he met kids, and he was just sitting and chatting in Dream Big
Right.
with the kids. But that 1 hour or 2 hour were very important because whatever he shared, whatever knowledge he's sharing from that space
Yeah.
is new. That is
Yeah.
education. That doesn't necessarily need to be in a textbook, doesn't necessarily to be on an exam
Right.
paper. No. So for me, it was like let them just explore, let them just come across as many things as possible, and then let them
Yeah.
choose.
Yeah. I mean,
That
I was thinking about. Sorry.
I know, like the basic standard space, like what we
Yeah.
say, right?
100%. Yeah.
So I
100%,
know,
man.
and
Like.
there would be books, there would be board, and the kid has to sit on the bench. Like here, you can just sit on the floor. Sometimes just maybe even sleep. There have been times when kids just came and
Yeah.
had a nap.
Yeah, and I think it's yeah, I think
That's
it's also
important.
important to realize it's not it's not a place where like, and that doesn't mean that you get to do whatever the fuck you want. Like you can't just do anything that you want. You have to be, it has to be
Right.
guided. But at the same time, what I also realized is that, listen, man, like one thing which I learned from school was definitely the knowledge about geography and history and chemistry and all that shit, which nobody uses. And then there's I mean, you can use it if you're a professional in that space. I'm not dissing the whole system. I'm just saying that in most cases, most students don't end up using like 60 or 70% of the knowledge there. And especially because it's just information. Anyway, so the thing is that most of my knowledge or most of my learning that I got from school was actually hanging out and talking to other people, other students. Right. But when we did that, I remember like my school was particularly rough. 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. These 4 years, a lot of people were just like, we were very rowdy as a group of people. We'd be breaking chairs, insulting teachers, doing all kinds of stuff. And that actually affected the way that I dealt with authority and interacted with a lot of people. So if you have a space where people are talking to each other decently, people like the teacher's kind, your kind back, and you get to see that as a child, suddenly you get a new window into how people have to interact with each other. There's like a different level of social learning that actually happens there. And that's also insane. That's also good to be part of.
And that I learned while teaching only, that when you give respect to students, that never crosses a teacher's mind actually. That you have to be respectable towards your students also. They are a person as well. They are just not like a robot you have to, program in a certain way. They are human beings, and whatever you say or whatever you do will leave a mark on them.
Yeah.
The first bunch of students that I came across, they were crazy to me. And then the situation flipped. I was in the middle of like, what do I do? Like, in our heads, most of the people won't believe this until they visit a municipal school as a, not a school teacher. Just like I want to say something, and nobody's listening to you. They give, who the hell are you? Why the hell are you here? You're taking away a free period. So that's funny. But at the same time, for me, it was like I will enter and they will be like, "Good morning, teacher," and nobody did that. It's like, theek hai, But that the way that changed, and just one thing, it was respect that I gave to them. Can you do this? Can we do this?
Right.
Asking them, should we do this? Should we learn this? No. Here we try to tame them.
Because nobody wants like
even in private
everyone
schools.
I think if once the moment you have like 40 or 50 or 60 people in your classroom, like just think about this, right? Like once you graduate from school, there's very rare contexts where you have 60 people in the same room who don't want to be there. Like how often do you go to a space and say, oh yeah, these 60 people, they were forced to be here? Like nobody does that. So you have to figure out, like teachers figure out a way to kind of wrangle them in these weird fucking ways, like through fear, intimidation, authority. Most, like, I'm not saying all teachers do that. I'm saying that the mainstream understanding is get this kid to shut up, sit down, and listen to what I have to say so I can get done with this 45-minute period of time. Nobody really cares about, like, I'm not going to care about 70 people, like 70 people doing great at a certain level and then saying, oh, wait, getting a student's permission to actually teach is like, do people really want that? I don't think most students do that. Most teachers do that. I think most of the time they just take the easy way out, get people to sit down and shut the fuck up. Just shut up.
Yeah. But there have been, like, I'm sure even in your school experience when we were students, there must be some period or some subject where the whole class was quiet. The whole class was busy doing what they were doing. That teacher had something different in them, or that subject had something different. That's very important to address because the teacher made the subject interesting and the teacher knew, because nobody was rude to that particular teacher. Nobody insulted that teacher. What was different about that teacher? Because the students were the same.
That's crazy because as you mentioned this, one of the experiences that I had very recently was with reference to statistics. My previous teacher in undergrad was a terrible teacher. He was really bad, like so much so that I would go to him for help and he would send me away. Like it was that bad. And the dude, it was a simple regression that he wanted us to do, like a regression analysis. Now I know that regression analysis is really easy. But at that time, I didn't, because I didn't know how to do it. Neither did I know what it was and why you use it and things like that. But fast forward, I had to do that again, like statistics again, advanced statistics now for my postgraduate studies. And when I was doing it, I had a different teacher this time. And this person was like, my objective is simple. By the end of this semester, I want you to be interested and excited about statistical analysis and using statistical tools. So I was like, sure. And then his whole assessment techniques were very different. He was very approachable. There were different, like there were labs, things like that. So by the end of the course, even though knowledge-wise I learned more information in my undergrad, probably, just the fact that I was doing different things in the second class, and also the instructor was a really good person, good guy, good teacher. And I was able to, like, now if you tell me, you know what, this is a data set, I want you to work on it and I want to be able to do it, I'll be able to do it. But it wasn't because of the first guy. It was always because of the second guy. I was not only more at peace with myself, I was also more comfortable actually doing what the person was trying to teach me. So I think that definitely teaching styles and just how you interact with your student as a person matters a lot, 100%.
And there are many students, like if you ask them what is your favorite subject, they will come up with subject, and then you ask why, they will say because this is my favorite teacher.
Yes.
Because the person, and I go back, I see that I saw certain people in my life. That is why I chose this path, because you start idealizing these guys. Let's go. Like the boys that we thought, they started football because the mentors were actually practicing. The teachers were, fit, or the teachers. So they program. It is like like priming. Like you see things and you just adapt. It's like a visual learning process, and just you subconsciously you're like, I want this, I
Yeah.
want that.
Yeah, because
So
yeah, I mean, I'm just imagining this whole space go down, right? If and I think this is very important, especially with reference to like languages, because if you want to learn a new language and you see someone, not like nobody around you is using it, and the only person who does know how to use it is nothing like you, comes from a different background, uses it in a completely different context, uh, has different friends that don't align with your own friends, things like that. You're not like, I'm not going to be motivated to learn. But I think what goes a long way is the fact that you speak English, but you also like, when you have to, you speak with the students in their local language and things like that. I think that goes a super long way.
yeah, and this is one of the major issues that at least Indian education system needs to address to bring out Indian
Yeah.
languages. Because you enter a space and you start speaking in English and you want the students to understand in an 8th
Yeah.
standard, 9th standard. How is it going to happen? It's not magic that suddenly they will understand
Yeah.
foreign language. There are schools. So, you know this, right? Like a lot of students, they pass 10th standard
Yeah.
with Hindi medium and then they go to an English medium
Right.
college because colleges are not Hindi medium and colleges are same. So you are telling me like for 10 years or 13 years, they have been learning only Hindi and all subjects
Right.
in Hindi. And then suddenly now they will take a stream in college and they will access to all subjects in English. Of course, their grades are going to go down. And then you're going to tell them you don't know this
Yeah, man.
subject. The problem here is only language and nothing else. They are smart enough. Like when I talk to students, everyone is
Yeah.
smart in my class. For me, everyone is smart. Everyone has knowledge about something or the other. And it's not even knowledge. For me, because I've done science, intelligence is not something that you learn. Intelligence is just there. Ability to understand, ability
Yeah.
to think. Everyone here has the ability
Right.
to think. The problem is they don't know the language or they don't understand. Half the time in exam halls when I went to supervise, there are kids who just ask, tell me what is this question?
Right.
I don't understand
Yeah.
the question. They know the answers, but they don't understand
Got it.
comprehension. They know the question.
Yeah,
Like
and
that.
also like like, so there's so many things, they're so powerful, like what you just said, because there are so many levels to this. One is the fact that imagine being in a space where you're expected to know the language but you don't, and there's nobody willing to fucking do anything about the fact that you don't know what's going on. So all of a sudden, like, I can imagine what it must be like to be in a space where everyone's speaking a foreign language, you don't understand it, and you're expected to, and people look down upon you for not knowing that language. That's terrible, man.
Right.
Like, that's just so unfair. And the second thing is, why test for memory? Like, why do you have, in this day and age, why do you have to ask someone a question which tests memories? Most of these questions are, what questions? What happened here? What happened there? So it doesn't make sense. I would rather then spend the first 12 or 13 years of my life not in school, but in a space where I get to learn with other people around me, learning from other people about, how to interact with other people, about how to ask questions. Even if I know how to ask questions, I had like a couple of students who were super curious. They would ask anyone anything. And because of that, they were able to learn like mechanics, and they were able to get their own chips and like, make their own quadcopters and things like that. So yeah, in those cases, you do definitely do want other skills when you don't have that English.
You might have a major in physics or major in a subject, but when you go to a local garage or like mechanics or anything, those people who are working for you most of the time are not educated. They have 4th standard, or 5th standard, and they have gone to this place and they have learned the technique and now they're masters of it. Sometimes you, like an electrician that comes to your house, They are not engineers. They just learn this work and they have come to you. They don't have a degree.
Yeah.
A plumber,
Yeah.
they don't have a degree in it. They
Yeah.
were working. So for learning a skill, it doesn't need to be like a memory should not be tested or like the way that it is and needs to change. Otherwise, also, if for me, the subject matter, the syllabus, that is needs to change it has not changed in a long time. We are still learning about Britishers coming to India and going away. Like I learned that, my students are learning that. So 25 years, nothing has changed.
Right. Even with reference
history.
to political science, I think one of the spaces which I'm learning a lot about past 2-3 years was big, and especially because I had not much knowledge about it before that. I had decent knowledge, but not as much as I do now. And I realized that just knowing political science is so important in terms of understanding what democracy is, how representation works, how you can hold your elected people off, elected representatives accountable. That whole process is so important to learn. So if I were to give you a clean slate, I was fine. You're in charge of the educational system now. What would be like some of the subjects that you would definitely want on there? Like you'd want people to learn, you'd want students to learn this.
Oh, compulsory subjects. Definitely political science, one of them. But okay, that's a tough one. I would make a compulsion also on sports learning subject, not just as a physical education, going out and exercising, but sports as a subject, knowing sportsmen of the country, knowing more about like Olympics and stuff. One more subject is, I just want to have a career subject. Like this is a new subject that I'm creating where the subject would teach you of what field will take you where, or what subject will take you where, and what are the options.
Yeah.
So like, why am I learning geography? Why am I learning history? Why? That book will just answer those questions. Why am I doing what?
That's
It needs to be addressed. Like I'm choosing a subject. Why am I doing this? A lot of people just focus on science and maths till 10th standard because they think history will take them nowhere, geography will take them nowhere. They don't know about most.
Yeah, that's actually not true. That's the exact opposite of true. And one space where I've been really learning that is I like learning new skills, like just to keep myself sharp, just to know how to learn a new skill. So I was looking at how people get better at playing chess, right? And so apparently, people think these chess guys, they're geniuses. They just know how to find the right moves and things like that. But actually, the truth is that the right move is finding the right move in a set of hundreds of combinations is very difficult. It's increasingly difficult. How difficult it is just impossible for you to imagine. But how you get around that is actually learning from the history of chess. So learning how historically people played and whether or not they won that match. So that's how you come up with openings and variations to that, to know what is the right move to play in a certain situation. And in a way, that is history, because chess matches actually, they're saved in a certain notation which is specific to chess, and those moves are kept in. And now with database technology and all, you can actually find exact combinations of moves and see when they were played and what was the result of when they were played, how many times they were played, by who they were played, like what was the level of the person who played these moves so many times. And as a result, you can actually learn from history. In the same way, you can also learn from a lot of other historical facts because you don't repeat it. I know that
history.
Go for it.
Okay.
So what I was saying,
so I was like, see, this
is the whole online conversation medium. So yeah, like even with reference to countries, right? Like a lot of people support, a lot of people in India now are really vehemently against certain kinds of politics. It's because we've seen it in the past and we know it doesn't lead to a good place in the past. Same thing with how the West looks at authoritarian leaders. They don't like authoritarian leaders whether they are on the right or on the left, because they've been burnt both sides. They've seen the history of Russia, or they've seen the history of what happened under the Nazi regime. So they don't like authoritarian leaders. So history also can teach you a lot about the future as well. It's just that we never learned it that way.
No, definitely history teaches us a lot. What it needs to be upgraded. It's the same history that we are learning for a very long time. It's the history we are learning about. I'm not saying Harappan civilization is not important, or how Gandhiji got us freedom is not important. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, yes, that needs to be a part of syllabus, but now the ratio should change. That should go to a 20%, and an addition of the past 40 years should be added. After 1947, what happened? We don't know. It's like after partition, there's just one chapter. Like after freedom, there's one chapter that comes. Then we did the constitution. That's it. After that, did the constitution ever change? Did anybody question it? What happened? How did the schools come up? How did the whole system come up? Nobody has told us anything about it. Suddenly from there, we are here. We just know Congress led, and then this. We don't know about most of the political leaders in the beginning.
Like you don't know some of the contributions. Like we've never formally learned about the contributions of some greats like Baba Saheb Ambedkar, things like that. People have a verbal history of this person about what they did, but there's no text where you can get this, And these kind of group leaders, people who've led movements, who've kind of created it. Even what happened with I was mind blown at this. Apparently. So we've never spoken about the emergency in the 70s. We know that there was an emergency in the 70s, but we don't know the implication that it had on our constitution at all. And then over and above all of this, what's crazy is that there's not one, and this is something which I never really knew till I was like in my early 20s, is that different people can define history differently. So you have different people actually creating their own definition of how past events happened, right? Like in different ways. Like people create different kinds of maps. People have different narratives about the same event, and that's also a part of actually looking at events from a critical lens, which is looking at it from an appraising to see, okay, this group of people said this, but this group of people said this about the same event, and that actually tells you that events themselves are limited by our ability to actually note them down and remember them. And that's a whole different learning altogether, And where do you learn that in our Indian education system?
When I came in my degrees, like when I was in my undergraduate, my professor told us in the class that history we don't know if it's true. It is a manipulated subject. The writers before, we don't know. We cannot tell. Yes, after a certain time when technology came, and now we have proofs of certain age. But before that, we do not know. We have sort of taken the, the facts around it and just made a conclusion. Because human wants to conclude. They don't want to give the facts the way it is. We always want to come to a conclusion that this is this. And that's what
that can make you so susceptible to bullshit, right? As a person, it doesn't make you think twice about information that's coming to you. So suddenly you're not questioning anything. Somebody will fucking turn around and tell you that what Gandhi did. Gandhi was a traitor. He didn't want what was good for India. He wanted what was good for the British. And people will start casting accusations at him. They'll start like worshipping Nathuram Godse, who was a right winger who actually who basically assassinated Gandhi. And people will like create this whole counter narrative without actually being able to put those conversations to test. Now the thing is that now with social media and all, everyone can share shit. So there will be a larger group of people who will believe in this because they don't know how to look at history critically. they won't be able to say, okay, fine,
Yeah.
Gandhi did this, and people say he's bad, but what are the results of setting a peaceful constitution over a long period of time? People won't contrast that with authoritarian nations that have not had this kind of democratic process. People are not going to appraise how other leaders across the world actually learned from Gandhi's method of peaceful non-cooperation and were able to launch movements of their own across the world, right? People like Mandela, people like Martin Luther King Jr., people like that. So yeah, then you can set up a whole different narrative on things, saying, okay, you know what, this guy's an asshole. This guy's the reason why I'm going through so much shit. If we would have fought, we would have gotten victory and things like that. And yeah, well, you can appraise that argument, but like, if you're going to tell me this and people are going to believe it just because somebody said it, that's problematic. And I think that's what
there are a lot of and there are a lot of things that's just said and we believe it. This used to not do this, and we start doing, like, in fact, even after social media being there and all, very basic things also have sort of been manipulated, that this person doesn't need this or this person didn't do that. That is why this, everyone wants to believe something without looking at the facts. Let's just go ahead. So yeah, that way, that is why history needs to be upgraded and checked also.
Yeah, like there are so many times where I've had some of my friends, not just my students, but my friends share like pieces of information with me, saying, this is a fact, right? Somebody's going to say, research shows that X, Y, Z. Now, the thing is that our educational system says, okay, research. तो अभी किसने research बोला तो मतलब ये है, ये जो बोला है सही है. No, we've never really said, okay, how do you question our sources and all. But in my undergrad, I had a great teacher who actually said, okay, when you see she was a very weird person, very mean as an individual, but as a teacher, she was amazing. And she said, when you're looking at any piece of information, you need to like highlight the key things that somebody is saying, and you need to be able to look at it, and you need to review whether or not how grounded in fact what they're saying is. And just that, like, even if you just use that saying, somebody said that research says XYZ is the outcome of this, what's the research? Can you tell me what that research is, right? So I've had examples where people have said, well, they say that. I said, who the fuck is they? Right? Can you tell me who this they is? Research states that. I said, what research? What are those numbers? Like, what makes you say that? What are some alternative explanations? Any issue is way deeper than you actually see the issue. But if we don't have the tools, which I didn't have for a long period of time, to actually look at that same issue in a different lens, you're not going to have that power. Like, you're not going to be able to look at it and say, holy shit, what am I looking at? And I think that's the education that I really longed for. Like, when I was a kid, like, if I was able to look at it and see something from a different lens, I definitely feel like I would be better off.
Yeah, even I feel the same actually. While growing up, it was different, and then now when I met different people, my learning changed. It changed in a lot way. That definitely.
Yeah, I think what definitely did contribute a lot was that, at least because I know you for a while now, so I'm just guessing that one thing which you definitely do is you go out of your way to make yourself uncomfortable, and then you learn from there.
Yeah, I will. Actually, this is again a teacher who's taught me. So basically, the community that I come from, that I was, like I am, nobody in my area, like around like 200-300 meters, has gone to an ICSE school when I went there. And these guys are going to a municipal school or like a Hindi medium school, or let's say just like a mediocre school. And I just was in an ICSE school. Now, my mother had this goal that she needs to my children are supposed to go to this school. When I went there, it was a different atmosphere. I was very uncomfortable. As a child, no, but when we come to second or third standard, I couldn't speak English the way they did. Because and in their home, the parents were also speaking to them in English. Right. And in my house, when I came back, I was speaking in Hindi or Marathi sometimes. So English for me was and then it became a medium of easing. And as I grew up, one of my teachers told me, you know what, start speaking. Start talking. Even if they're judging you, start talking. And when I started talking, it changed. I read. And then I was better than some of the people who were teasing me. So when I conquered that, then it then I started putting myself into the uncomfortable situations. Like, I know this space is not for me like that. Then I'll go there. Then I have to make that space mine. Then I have to make other people, or I will adapt to the place. I will become one of them.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Because that's actually the process, right? That's the whole process of learning something. Anything new is like you're going to be uncomfortable as hell. And
to accept that, to not be afraid in the beginning. A lot of people miss opportunities just because they're scared. They can't go ahead with that. And I'm not saying I have conquered everything. There are spaces where I still feel I can't deal with this. But you have to start giving yourself time and start explaining to yourself that it's okay. That is why I make my students uncomfortable sometimes. That is a strategy I use. So I will tell them so and so person is coming. So I create this atmosphere like my friend is coming. He's an engineer. He's this. Don't talk to them like that. You have to show that you're this, you're that. They should not. This is the first impression. So the effort they put in to dress up or to create that space, or they will sit in a certain posture, they will sit in a certain way, they will speak English, their shoulders will be straight. The whole process is basically they're uncomfortable. But when they do this, and when they, even when you were coming, in fact, I was like, Shivam Bhai is coming. And he has so much, he has thought so much about you. And you're going to sit like this, you're going to behave like this. And they became uncomfortable. Like, now we are killing this. And when you left, then they have this happiness that, he thought good about me. He left with a good impression. And that boosts their confidence. Now my students can talk to anybody. They're not scared anymore. So when we went to Goa also, they were like talking to foreigners. They were not like hesitant about asking for a video, asking for them to subscribe to our channel.
That's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool.
I mean,
I think it goes a long way in just that. Like, it takes a lot of time to actually recognize that, just as a general rule, that if you're not uncomfortable, you're safe, you're fine. But that also means that you're probably not growing. Like, so consciously, when you're uncomfortable, and this is what I've seen from a lot of people who are even hyper successful, because they're uncomfortable all the time, they don't see themselves as people who've achieved a lot or know a lot or who have a lot, because they're so uncomfortable. Like, they've just been putting themselves out there constantly, that for them to actually accept that they've come a long way is out of their wheelhouse. They'll be like, no, I need to get here, I need to get to where I want to get. And for somebody like that to actually sit back and acknowledge that, holy shit, I've come a long way, is not normal. Because people who are generally who want to be safe kind of do that. They want to like look and see how far they've come, and they think that I'm at a good place. This is like a fact which is crazy, because one of my friends who's super accomplished in the culinary arts world really feels like she does not know enough. She needs to know more, right? And it's a very normal process. Like, again, I'm going to connect that to a new skill that I'm learning, and it's a very interesting phenomena that happens, right? So when you know very little, apparently in chess, when you don't know a lot, right, when you know very little, you play better because you only know one thing and you don't know about all the 100 things that are going to happen, right? But the moment you get better, like in terms of performance wise, and the moment you start learning more about it, you start learning about all of the different things that are possible in that chessboard. So you might actually end up making more mistakes and feeling a little bit more uncomfortable when somebody plays a certain move. And that isn't because you know less. In fact, you know more than you knew earlier. So you have developed. But because of that, the amount of discomfort that you feel is a lot higher because of the level of knowledge that has increased. And that's a crazy phenomenon. When I saw that phenomenon, I'm like, wait, what the fuck? That's crazy. It's interesting that as you learn more, your surety does not increase, but your level of confusion increases. So if you are on a journey of self-discovery in any space, you're going to feel more uncomfortable than you are going to feel comfortable.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I tell myself sometimes because people I follow actually, like you idolize people. So when I see all these successful people, I do go to their quotes and stuff. If you've come to Dream Big, you see the quotes are all over. The reason are that one-liners they kind of motivate me to sort of be uncomfortable. It's fine to be uncomfortable. To believe that it's fine to be uncomfortable. It's not a problem. That it's okay. Sometimes to be confused, sometimes to fail, sometimes to because around you there are people who are comfortable. Most of the time, people around you are comfortable. They're having a nice salary, they're having a nice job, whatever makes them comfortable and comfortable. And you being like, I can also do that. That thing comes up to me a lot of times. Yeah, because of the kind of people that I follow, it changes.
Yeah, there's definitely there's always an impulse to do that. But there's also this feeling of why did I do that? Like, why did I just seek comfort right now? So then that becomes weird. Then you want to change that. Then you want to make yourself a little bit more uncomfortable. And I feel like you definitely have lived that with Dream Big and things like that. Because you started your own, because you started it. You kind of launched it. You didn't know much about it. Walk me through that. What was the...
So I was just 19, I was 19 and a half or something when I started it. Right now I'm 25. So I also did not exactly get out of my teenage when I started it. It's been 6 years now. And I had just got my driving license. I remember very clearly that 2016 we started it, 4 years. No, 2015 I started it. I had just got graduated. 2015 ending. So and I actually when I look at my students, I'm like, I was your age when I started this. So that kind of so I think that worked for me, that I was young. So it was like, you have that daredevil thing. You don't care about you don't have to make a house, you don't have to make a living out of this. So it was fine for me. When I started this, it was in a very small space actually, very uncomfortable, not proper washrooms, and not basic necessities were not there. And so what I did was I actually took a little amount of fees from the students, which was very basic, and to my surprise, actually, that kind of funding helped me to build another space, a bigger space with the necessities that they need to have. This again is something that's ignored in our system a lot. Like, they do not think of proper lighting or a proper ventilation or a washroom will change the way the student stays. The painting, the atmosphere, the reason, when I started, my colleagues, in fact, told me, why are you investing in the walls? Why are you investing in the paintings? Why are you thinking of decorating it so much? Why are you thinking of this? And I made the students decorate the space, right? I made the students come together and, this wall is you.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do. And this wall is yours. And what they came up with was better than most of the interior designers. Because they will put a lot of work into it and very details into it. These guys went up. There was a time when there was a wall where there were just handprints of various colors of the students. Like, this is my handprint, this is my handprint, and which was amazing because you make that space. So that, and then today we are like a big center with 75 students who have just passed, and like, in fact, today only 25 of my students have got into good colleges. For the fourth time now. Yeah, for the fourth time now. Finally the FIJC merit list has come out. So they did get into good colleges. But what I'm doing in Dream Big is I am making the students, so I guide them the whole career, sort of, not the whole career, but I do the basic designing of the career. That's what I like to call it, that I design it. Why do I say I design it? Is because a lot of time my students are confused about themselves. They don't know what they want to do or what talent they have or what is their interest. So I talk to them. I try to figure out what is it. Sometimes I guess after the conclusions that I make. Say like one of my students is very good at painting. I'm very good at artist work. So then I was like, you know what? Take arts, take interior design, take a vocational course. So like that. Or someone is very good at maths. So then I will push him towards maths. And I will introduce them to new subjects. If like somebody is very good at football, so I will don't take so much effort in academics. You do a basic degree of arts because it's necessary. And then, on the side, because arts will give you a lot of time, free time, there will be no practicals or such. You can practice your football or, your gymnastic, whatever they're doing. Dancers, like that. And I get them to good colleges because good colleges are important. And after that, they kind of, after a good college, you don't need to help the student. Then they can fly out. Then they can design their own stuff. Then you don't need to even tell them. Everything changes.
That's crazy. And and if somebody wants to kind of reach out to you, wants to find it, you have Indian Musafirs on YouTube. What are some of the other
So we have Dream Big also on YouTube. It's not that established as Indian Musafirs is right now. Like, I'm not saying very, but it has good amount of subscribers for at least students. Dream Big is just started the YouTube channel. We have 2 videos, but so Dream Big needs to be designed more. So we are doing a lot of things, It's like we are getting students to colleges. Then after, even in college, if they require to just come back and, a basic necessity, if it's just a filling of form or it's just I need to talk to you, that feeling, anything. So I'm always available there. And I don't know if you remember, but we also do the night class. For a month, student stays with me during their boards.
That's actually great crazy. Because I heard stories from that experience where you were like, some of the students stayed over and things like that. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So it started off like, so it was just, my first batch was about to give their board exam, and most of them didn't have access to light in the night because the parents were coming and going to sleep. They needed the lights off. So I offered them, why don't you come and stay in Dream Big? So now after that group started of 5, it went up to 20. So there were 20 kids in the first batch itself. They were sleeping. So I got very conscious of, I cannot leave these 20 kids alone. That cannot happen. So then I got involved and I was like, I'll stay. So it's like, okay. And then the craziest thing happened. I saw the naughtiest students, or the students who are not interested in studying, sit in the night and study. And how that happened? Because during boards, I remember from my boards, when I was alone at home, even if I had the access to light, I had access to a
Yeah.
comfortable home, I couldn't study because everyone else
Yeah.
was sleeping. So pointless. But the moment it became a group study for them, it was like others are studying. So even if I felt like sleeping, I'm getting up and then studying. And then they were sleeping together, getting up together, going for exams together, and the pressure went off another level. Like there was no pressure on boards. There was no pressure
Yeah.
at all. So when I'm alone,
Yeah.
I'm afraid. Whole thing I'm thinking about tomorrow is boards tomorrow. I'm with friends. I'm having chai. I'm talking about a
Yeah.
sum. My teacher's right here. If I have any doubt, I can just ask her. Whole system became
Yeah,
very
the
chilled
exams
out.
were the exams are really stressful. Like board exams are so stressful. And I actually had a very similar experience when I was in school. So I was in boarding school when it happened. So and because mine was in the north, my school was in the north, it was very cold. So it's winter break when when my boards were happening. So there were around, I think, 30 of us, if I'm not mistaken, like 30 or 60 of us in the whole school in the hills, right? And there was nobody else there, and we were all staying in the same dorm, and the whole atmosphere was completely different than what my other friends experienced, who were in Bombay. And we were kind of just chilling, talking in the night. There was people studying, people were discussing issues with relation to studying. Some people were just like in a corner studying by themselves. And then I had the impulse to just fucking do whatever I wanted, just chill in the corner. But I couldn't let myself do that when my bunkmate, when the guy right next to me sleeping in the next bed, is like, who sleeps in the next bed, is just doing his own thing. He's just studying him by himself. It's so difficult to do. Yeah. And even when we actually sat for the exam, we sat as a batch. Like everybody knew each other. I think there were mixed rows, but I think people like around you were not from your batch, but diagonally they were. So we basically gave the exams together, and it was in like a very simple dormitory that we gave it. Not dormitory, like in a auditorium
Hall,
that
like
we
a
gave
big
it.
hall.
And like it was a very very
Okay.
simple affair, and it really did take the pressure off, because I can imagine.
It does. And the students, there have been cases where school teachers have challenged the students that you are not going to
Yeah.
clear the exam. And the kids, in my first batch, I had like 3 of these kids who were challenged by the school teachers that you will not clear the exam. And they were sitting and they had this sudden motivation. And trust me, they had not
Yeah.
studied for the whole year. It was the last 2 months where it was kind of the belief that I had in them. I told them, you are going to clear it. There's one person telling you can do that. Can you listen to that one person? You're choosing to listen to the other 10. Can you trust me for once? And they did. And when they came in that atmosphere, I saw them sitting and studying. It changed. Like in my head, I never could have imagined those kids sitting and studying so, like responsibly or like
I mean, even the fact that they tried,
they were
like
very
even if
focused.
even if they
And they cleared.
That's amazing.
They cleared with 50%.
That's amazing.
They cleared with 50%. Their parents were crying. Their parents couldn't believe the result. They could not
That's
believe
amazing.
the result.
I can completely totally get that, because if nobody in my, like, it's one thing for your parents to care, like, give your exam. But what happens when nobody in your family gives a shit about the exam? Like, that's also an eventuality, right? Nobody gives a shit about the fact that you're giving a big exam, and that can predict, or that can really affect your future in many different ways. If your family is apathetic to it, you're going to be apathetic to it. But suddenly you're in an environment where everybody else is like, oh, this is a big deal. Like, this, what's happening is super important. You need to be spending time focusing on making sure that it goes well. Suddenly I'll be like, wait, like, why was I taking it so lightly earlier? I think I need to take it a little bit more seriously. And that causes a lot of change as well.
And of course, the challenge, I mean, just to prove, and uh, they got a certain amount of joy when the results came out. We saw the faces and like, I am going to that teacher and I'm showing this result to them. So that, and it became a tradition in Green Bay. Now, for the past 4 years, we are having night outs every time papers come out. And, I get admission on the condition of, you're going to have the night out this year, right? I am in 10th standard. Please continue till I pass my 10th. But for me, of course, now it's becoming like, okay, because you spend like a month, 22 days with the kids, every night. And then you come to know their personal stories and their, what happens in their home, because we are having a chai break, we are having dinners together.
Yeah.
So, and that teaches a lot. Like there have been days where a kid couldn't bring dinner. So the other kids shared. So the whole experience of just staying together was a big deal. And to understand, like, the other person is going. See, I feel there's a quote that Tata says that, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So when this team became together, then the dreams became stronger. Like I individually thinking I want to reach there, or I want to get a certain shoe, or I want to get into this college, was very, very not that exciting. But the moment me and my friends want to go to that college, everyone's thinking about it. There's more power to it.
And what's also amazing is that how suddenly and how quickly that you've changed the frame, the basis of interaction that a lot of because I know a lot of these students that suddenly it's not about who's the coolest or who's the baddest, who's the biggest, who's doing what, who's fucking around where. Suddenly the conversation is now about who's focused on achieving the most. That's a very important shift of frame for students who've not seen academic achievement before. It might be a completely different case if all these parents are on each of their cases saying you got to do well, and they're living completely regimented lives, and then all of a sudden you've got like 30 of those kinds of students all want to do that. Like it's going to be like fucking terrible. Like they're all going to just stress each other out. But when you kind of create this frame with the kinds of, like, with the groups of students that you've been working with, you've kind of also just shifted the conversation a little bit into getting them to be a little bit more serious, and that's fabulous.
Yeah. Also learning from each other. Like if I tell them I was studying, I was doing this, I did that, not that interesting. But two friends talking to each other, why don't you do this? I have done this, I tried this, and they're at the same age, they're going through the same thing. It creates a big difference. Like if I tell I had chai and I was working like that, or I was studying for so many hours, doesn't make a difference. You see your friend doing it, major difference. Even explanation, like there are concepts sometimes that even if I understand the concept very well, I might not be able to teach it to a student, but a student of mine will be able to teach it to him.
Yeah, it's amazing how that happens. But
because the level of and you can explain it, or maybe you can put it into a language that they understand each other better, or they can put it in that way, so that helped. And that is how student leadership came into process. And then I started making student leaders. So in their groups only, I started choosing students who will try and bring the change, or they will point out, they will try to work for one change each. That created a major difference in the class. When you give the responsibility in their hands, you are responsible for this space, you are responsible for everything. I am just a person here. I'm just managing here. Everything changes very quickly.
I can imagine how amazing that must be in students getting that level of ownership, and even a certain sense of leadership in their in just learning that as a skill. Leadership as a skill is a lot of times people think leadership is either you have it or you don't. Like there's no in between. And that's because I think people have a way of finding out leaders very young and then only giving those leaders opportunities in the future. You know what I'm saying? So if i'm if
Yeah.
I am a leader in school, like if I've shown the qualities of being a leader in school very young, then people promote that a lot. But like any other skill or any other piece of knowledge, it's not something that's like innate. Like yes, you can be talented at it by looking at examples very young, but most people can also learn it. So when you actually teach someone, or when you give people the opportunity to build that leadership through trying different things, it could be a certain project that somebody is in charge of, things like that. You're giving people the opportunity to build that skill, and when that happens, people actually, students especially, are way better off. They do get that skill, and suddenly you realize, wait, it's not something which is like an innate talent. Everyone can learn it. It's just that you have to have the opportunity to learn it.
Absolutely. Opportunity also, and the way you get that chance, that is also important. In many schools, in fact in our schools, in your school, we must have witnessed a teacher asking the most mischievous kid to become the monitor of the class, to become the prefect, and to mind the class when they are absent. Just because that person is naughtiest, and the moment you give him the responsibility, it suddenly the whole class is quiet. Or like the bully of the class become the the person who mind. Suddenly everything is fine, right? That is a wrong way of giving them the leadership. What I did was, it was open. Like anyone who wants to become a leader, these are the privileges that will come if you become a leader in the class. Say you're getting a 2,000 discount, or you're getting a you're getting a folder, you're getting so and so. You're getting these privileges if you become a leader. Who all would like to become a leader? Now there were 10 kids who came up. I made them go to a process of an exam, of scholarship, of an interview. It was like a 2-day process where they were giving interviews to the teachers and mentors, and they were grilled basically. They were like, oh my God, what are we becoming? And then I made a contract where there were rules and regulations that if you are a leader, you are supposed to follow this. This is this thing. So basically then it was a job. It was not you just got up and now you're doing this. No. You earned this. Now you are. First, you make them believe that you are a leader, and then give them the responsibility. Now they're confident. Now they are able to take the decisions. If you just give them, now they will just be like, they're just goofing around. Like, this is moving. They're just doing what they want to do. Sometimes they will become right. Sometimes it may be wrong. But not necessarily seeing this as a learning.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the biggest thing is that you take everything as a learning. Like anything is a potential for someone to learn something. If you want to learn leadership, then you got to, definitely there will be a process. But the fact that there is going to be 10 students who will be going through that process, you might not get what you want. You might not get that scholarship. You might not get that leadership position. But your preparation for that, and the fact that you put in your energy in getting good in this space, actually helped you grow in a certain direction. It might not be you might not be getting the results that you want if you didn't get it, but at the same time you definitely walked out.
Everyone gets it. So everyone gets it, but they get different responsibilities. So you don't fail anyone in this test, but you make it so strict that they suddenly become very aware. It becomes a competition. Now everyone wants to win. So nobody is going to give you wrong answers. See, there's no wrong answer. There's just an answer. So after that, then it is very simple to make them. So basically, I would give them simple tasks. Like if a student is being absent for a long time, so the leader has to talk to them. Like that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. One more time, if supposing somebody wants to get in touch with you, there's Indian Musafirs on YouTube. There's Dream Big Classes.
We are on Instagram as well.
Right.
We are the Indian Musafirs and Dream Big Classes.
Right. So if anybody wants to reach you, they can reach out. They can DM you there, and they can get in touch with you there. Yeah, well, thank you
Yes.
so much, Kiran. It was a good conversation. I'm just going to put a stop on it, but
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. Thank you.